The summer evening light spilled across my kitchen table in warm golden streaks, catching the dust motes as they drifted lazily through the air. I was peeling apples the same way I had 100 times before, my paring knife making that soft scrape against the fruit's skin. Outside, the cicadas hummed, and the smell of fresh-cut grass drifted in through the open window. It was such an ordinary moment. One of those small pockets of peace you don't even notice until something comes along to break it. My granddaughter, at least I'd always thought of her that way, sat across from me, Emily. She was 20 now, with dark brown hair pulled into a messy bun and a phone in her hand, her thumbs tapping rapidly on the screen. The faint glow lit her face, making her eyes look cooler, more distant than I remembered. I thought we were having a normal, quiet evening together. I thought she was here because she wanted to be. I didn't see it coming. She didn't look up from her phone when she said it. Just let the words drop into the air between us like she was reading a weather report. You're not my real mom. The knife paused mid-peel, the apple skin hanging in a fragile curl. What? I asked, the word catching somewhere in my throat. She finally looked up. I mean, biologically, you're not my real mom. I didn't know if it was the way she said it, so flat, so certain, or the fact that she used the word real, that stung the most. I set the knife down and tried to keep my voice steady. Emily, where is this coming from? She shrugged, glancing back at her phone. Doesn't matter. I just think it's weird that you act like you are. I could feel the warmth draining from my hands. My chest tightened and a buzzing started in my ears. I'd raised this girl from the moment she came home from the hospital. I'd sat up with her through fevers, clapped at her kindergarten graduation, cheered at her soccer games. I'd been there for every scraped knee and every tearful confession after middle school drama. Not her real mom. The truth was, I wasn't her birth mother. Emily was my stepdaughter's child, born into chaos, into a world where her own mother couldn't care for her. I had stepped in without hesitation because love doesn't come with disclaimers. But to her, I was just someone filling in a role. Temporary. Replaceable. I wanted to ask who had put this idea in her head. But some part of me already knew. The conversation ended almost as quickly as it began. She went back to her phone. I went back to peeling apples, though I couldn't remember what I was making anymore. That night after she left, I sat in the living room without the TV on. The house felt hollow. Every framed photo on the mantel seemed to stare back at me. Emily as a baby in my arms, Emily on her first day of school, Emily blowing out the candles on her sweet 16 cake. All of it felt different now, like someone had reached back through time and pulled at the seams of my life, making them unravel. When I finally went to bed, sleep didn't come. I kept hearing her voice in my head, blunt and unshaken. You're not my real mom. The next morning I called my oldest friend, Helen. We'd known each other since we were both 19, and she had the kind of voice that could soothe a storm. What's wrong, Maggie? You sound like you've been crying, she said as soon as she picked up. I told her about the conversation, trying to keep my voice from breaking. Maggie, she's young. They say things without thinking. You can't let it get to you. But she meant it, I said. She wanted to put me in my place. Helen was quiet for a moment. Has she been spending more time with, her mother? I hesitated. I think so. She's been seeing her on weekends. And there it was, the faint, bitter taste in my mouth every time I thought about Emily's birth mother, Lacey. A woman who had disappeared for most of Emily's childhood, only to drift back into her life now, smiling like the years of absence didn't matter. I'd been patient. I'd told myself that Emily deserved to know her biological mother, even if it meant I had to take a step back. But now I wondered if Lacey had been doing more than just reconnecting. The following Sunday, Emily came over again. She was quieter than usual, scrolling through her phone while I made lunch. I wanted to ask her about Lacey, about what she'd been saying, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I set a plate in front of her. Made your favorite, I said, sliding the grilled cheese sandwich across the table. She glanced at it. Thanks. No smile. We ate in silence. The clock on the wall ticked far too loudly. I could feel the distance growing between us like a shadow, creeping in from the edges of the room. Halfway through her sandwich, she said, Lacey's moving back to town. She's getting her own place. I nodded slowly. That's nice. She said I could stay with her if I wanted. The words lodged in my throat. I swallowed hard. Is that what you want? She shrugged, but I could see the glint in her eyes. This wasn't just casual conversation. It was a test. I forced myself to smile. You know you'll always have a home here. She didn't answer. That night after she left, I went into the small room at the end of the hall. The one that had been hers since she was a toddler. The walls were still pale lavender, the same color we'd painted them together when she was 7. Her trophies were still lined up on the shelf, gathering dust. The comforter on the bed was rumpled from her last overnight stay. I sat down on the bed and stared at the space where her favorite stuffed animal used to sit. I'd always known there might come a day when she'd drift away, find her own life. But I never imagined she'd try to erase me entirely. By the end of that week, I knew I couldn't just sit back and watch it happen. I had to understand where this was coming from. So I made a decision, one that would take me down a path I wasn't ready for. I was going to talk to Lacey. I hadn't seen Lacey in almost 5 years, not since she'd shown up on Emily's 16th birthday with a flashy necklace and a promise to be around more. That promise had evaporated in less than 3 months, just like all the ones before it. But now she was back. And this time she was close enough to whisper into Emily's ear whenever she pleased. I didn't call ahead. I figured if I gave her time to prepare, she'd put on one of her rehearsed performances. The ones where she played the reformed mother who'd just been misunderstood. Instead, I found her address through a mutual acquaintance and drove over on a Wednesday afternoon, my palms sweating against the steering wheel. The apartment complex was one of those newer builds on the edge of town, all gray siding and neat landscaping. I parked, sat for a minute and told myself to keep my voice calm no matter what. When I knocked, it took her a few moments to answer. She looked different. The Lacey I remembered had been all unbrushed hair and eyeliner smudges. This Lacey had her hair styled into glossy waves, a fresh coat of lipstick and a fitted blouse that looked expensive. "Well, if it isn't Maggie," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Can I come in?" I asked. She hesitated just long enough for me to notice, then stepped aside. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla candles and something sharp, perfume maybe. We sat in the living room facing each other across a low glass coffee table. I kept my hands clasped in my lap. "I wanted to talk about Emily," I began. Lacey smiled, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What about her?" "She told me you said she could move in with you. She's an adult now. She can make her own choices." "I'm aware of that. But I'd like to know what you've been saying to her." Her expression shifted just slightly, but enough. "Why? Afraid she's realizing the truth." My chest tightened. "The truth. That you're not her real mom." She said it the same way Emily had, flat, cutting, like she was slicing open something tender. I leaned forward. "I may not have given birth to her, but I've been there every day of her life. I've raised her, cared for her, loved her." He cut me off with a laugh. "Loved her? Maggie, you're a babysitter who never stopped babysitting. I'm her mother. That's never going to change." Her words hit harder than I wanted to admit. But I forced myself to keep my tone steady. "If you cared so much about that role, maybe you should have been around when she was 3 years old and screaming with an ear infection at 2 in the morning. Or when she cried herself to sleep because she didn't understand why her mother didn't come to her school play." Lacey's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before snapping back in place. "I was going through things." "You've been going through things for 20 years, I said quietly. The conversation spiraled from there. She insisted she was just reconnecting with her daughter. I pointed out that reconnecting didn't have to mean pushing me out. Every time I tried to make her see reason, she parried with a smug remark, like this was some kind of game she was enjoying. Finally I stood. "I came here hoping we could work together for Emily's sake. But if your goal is to make her choose between us, you're going to hurt her more than you realize." She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "Maybe she needs to make that choice." That was it. That was the moment I knew Lacey wasn't just drifting back into Emily's life. She was pulling her in inch by inch, trying to rewrite the history I'd built with that girl. I walked out without another word. The drive home felt longer than it should have. My mind replayed every second of that conversation, every jab, every smug look. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. When I got home, I went straight to the kitchen and set the kettle on the stove. It was an old habit. Tea before anything else when the world felt too heavy. As I waited for it to boil, I caught sight of the photo on my fridge. Emily at age 7 holding up the cake we'd baked together. Her smile was wide and genuine, frosting smudged on her cheek. That little girl had loved me without question. Now I wasn't sure she even liked me. 2 days later, Emily came by. She was in a hurry, she said, just stopping in to grab something she'd left. I could feel the conversation with Lacey burning in my mind, but I didn't want to start a fight. She moved around the kitchen, opening cabinets like she was a guest in someone else's house. Finally, I said, "Emily, can we talk?" She froze, her hand on the cabinet handle. "About what?" "I spoke to your mother." Her shoulders stiffened. "Oh. She told me she's been asking you to move in with her." Emily turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "She didn't ask. She offered. And maybe I will." I swallowed hard. "Why?" Her jaw tightened. "Because she's my mom, Maggie. I want to know her. I want to see what it's like." I wanted to scream that she did know what it was like, because I'd given her that life. But I could see the stubborn set of her mouth, the way her eyes dared me to argue. So I didn't. "Whatever you decide," I said softly, "I just want you to remember that love isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And I've always shown up for you." She didn't answer. She grabbed what she came for and left without looking back. That night, I sat alone in the living room again, the silence pressing in from every side. I thought about the years I'd spent raising her, years Lacey had missed entirely, and now, somehow, I was the one standing on the outside. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The weeks ahead would test every ounce of patience, strength, and love I had left. Because Lacey wasn't just back. She had a plan. And Emily was already halfway out the door. The first sign that Emily was slipping further away came quietly. No fights, no yelling, just a gradual fading like a photograph left in the sun too long. At first it was small things. She stopped calling me on Sunday mornings like she used to. When I texted her to check in, she'd take hours, sometimes days, to reply. She still came by the house now and then, but never stayed long. I told myself she was just busy. After all, she was 20. Young adults had their own lives to live. But I knew better. I could feel the shift. One Saturday afternoon, I saw her Instagram post. A smiling selfie of her and Lacey at a brunch place downtown. Matching mimosas. Matching sunglasses. Emily's caption read, "Mother-daughter date." I sat at the kitchen table staring at the screen, my tea growing cold beside me. It wasn't the picture that hurt. It was the caption. In all these years, Emily had never posted a photo of me with a caption like that. Helen called later that day as if she could sense my mood from across town. "You've been quiet lately," she said. I told her about the photo. She sighed. "Maggie, she's testing the waters. You can't stop her from getting to know Lacey, but you can make sure she remembers the difference between a mother and a tourist." "A tourist?" I asked. "That's what Lacey is. She breezes in when it's convenient, takes a few pictures, plays the part. But she's never had to stay for the hard parts." Helen was right, but that didn't make it easier to watch. The following week, Emily came by to pick up some old clothes she'd left. She looked different. Hair freshly cut, nails painted a shade of red she'd never worn before. "Wow," I said with a smile. "You look nice." "Thanks," she said casually. "Lacey took me to this new salon. Said it was time I tried something fresh." There was pride in her voice, the kind you hear from someone showing off a shiny new toy. I asked her to stay for dinner, but she hesitated. "I'm meeting Lacey later. She's got tickets for a show." I forced myself to smile again. "Have fun." When she left, I stood at the window watching her car pull away. That feeling in my chest, the one I'd been trying to ignore, spread wider. She wasn't just seeing Lacey on weekends anymore. Lacey was weaving herself into every corner of Emily's life. One evening, I decided to stop by the coffee shop downtown. It was a place Emily and I used to go to when she was in high school. A cozy little spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of cinnamon in the air. I'd barely stepped inside when I saw them. Emily and Lacey sitting at a corner table, laughing over something on Emily's phone. I froze, hidden behind the doorframe. They looked like they'd known each other forever. Like the years Lacey had been gone didn't matter. For a moment I almost walked over. But then I heard Lacey's voice. "She never let you do that because she's old-fashioned. I think you should live a little." Emily laughed, leaning closer. I didn't need to hear more. I turned around and walked out before they could see me. That night, the silence in my house was heavier than usual. I couldn't shake the sound of Lacey's voice. Smooth, confident, planting little seeds of doubt in Emily's mind. I remembered something from years ago when Emily was about 6. We'd been at the park and she'd run to the top of the slide, too scared to come down. I'd stood at the bottom, arms open, telling her, "I'm right here. I'll catch you." She trusted me completely then. She'd let go. Now I wasn't sure she would. I decided I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. If Lacey was just trying to reconnect, fine, I could accept that. But if she was actively trying to push me out, I needed to be ready. So I called an old acquaintance, someone who knew Lacey from years back. He worked at the community center where Lacey had been seen volunteering lately. "Maggie," he said when I asked about her, "I don't know what she's telling you, but she's been talking about getting full custody of Emily for months now." I gripped the phone tighter. Full custody? She's 20 years old. I know. I think she means it more. Emotionally. Wants Emily to cut ties with you completely. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about reconnecting. It was about replacing me. The next time Emily came over, I tried to bridge the gap. I told her about the garden I'd started in the backyard, about the old family recipes I wanted to teach her. She listened politely, but I could see her mind was elsewhere. When she left, I found myself standing in her old room again, staring at the lavender walls. I didn't know how to fight for her without pushing her away even more. But I did know one thing. Lacey had underestimated me. I'd raised Emily through storms Lacey had never even seen. And I wasn't about to let a mother-daughter date erase 20 years of love. I didn't plan the confrontation. It happened the way storms do, building in quiet, invisible ways until the clouds broke all at once. It was a Tuesday evening and Emily had stopped by unexpectedly. She came in wearing a new jacket, sleek and expensive looking, with a shopping bag dangling from her arm. "Nice jacket," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Thanks. Lacey bought it for me." She said it casually, like she wanted me to know. That's when the words I'd been holding back came tumbling out. "Emily, I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time with her." She shifted uncomfortably. So, I just want to make sure you understand what's happening here. Lacey is trying to step into a role she abandoned a long time ago. And I don't want you to forget who was here for you all these years. Her eyes narrowed. "Why do you always talk about her like that?" "He's trying, Maggie. People change." "Yes, people can change," I said, "but that doesn't erase the past. It doesn't erase the nights you cried yourself to sleep because she didn't show up. It doesn't erase the school plays she missed, the birthdays she forgot." "Stop." Her voice cracked, sharp and sudden. "You think I don't know all that? You think I don't remember?" The room went still. She set her shopping bag down and crossed her arms. "Lacey told me why she stayed away. She said you made it hard for her to see me." I blinked. "What?" "She said you didn't want me to have a relationship with her. That you kept her away because you wanted me all to yourself." I stared at her, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Emily, that's not true." She left. I didn't push her away, she walked away on her own. "That's not what she told me." "She's rewriting history," I said, my voice trembling now. "And she's doing it because it makes her look like the victim." Emily shook her head. "I don't know who to believe anymore." Those words felt like a blade. In that moment, I realized that the years of trust I'd built could be undone by a few whispered lies. After she left that night, I sat in the kitchen with the lights off. The quiet was suffocating. It wasn't just about losing Emily, it was about losing the truth. If she believed Lacey's version of the past, then the love and sacrifice I'd poured into raising her would be recast as something selfish, manipulative. I needed to do something, but I didn't know what. Helen called the next day and I told her everything. "You need proof," she said simply. "Proof?" "Yes. She's getting one story from Lacey. You need to show her the reality. Pictures, letters, people who were there. You can't just tell her, she has to see it for herself." I thought about the boxes in my attic. Photo albums, report cards, little notes Emily had left me over the years. They weren't just memories. They were evidence of a life built together. That weekend I pulled them out. The first album I opened was from Emily's first year in school. Her in pigtails holding up her first drawing. Me kneeling beside her with an arm around her shoulder. The captions in my handwriting were simple. "First day of kindergarten." She was nervous but so brave. I remembered that morning vividly. Lacey hadn't called once to ask how it went. I stacked the albums on the coffee table. Then I found the birthday cards Emily had made me. Crayon hearts, stick figures holding hands. I'd saved everyone. It was painful sifting through it all, but it was also grounding. These weren't just sentimental trinkets. They were proof that my role in her life wasn't an accident. On Sunday afternoon, I called Emily and asked if she'd come over. When she arrived, I gestured to the coffee table. "I want to show you something." She sat, arms crossed, wary. I opened the first album. "This is the day you lost your first tooth. Remember? You were so scared it would hurt, so I made you that little pillow to put it in for the tooth fairy." She glanced at the photo but didn't say anything. I turned the page. "This is when you broke your arm. You insisted on having a pink cast and we had everyone at the block party sign it." A flicker of a smile appeared, but it was gone just as quickly. I closed the album. "Emily, these aren't just pictures. They're our life. I didn't keep you from your mother. She kept herself from you. I was just the one who stayed." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes softer now. But then she said, "I appreciate what you did for me. I really do. But I need to figure out who I am, and that means figuring out who she is too." It wasn't the breakthrough I'd hoped for, but it wasn't the door slamming shut either. That night I realized something. I couldn't stop Emily from seeking Lacey. But I could make sure she never forgot what she and I had. And if Lacey wanted to turn this into a battle, I was ready to fight. Not with anger, but with truth. The first weekend Emily didn't come home, I told myself it was nothing. "She's 20, I muttered while stirring soup for one. "It's normal for her to be out." But by the third weekend in a row, the truth sank in. She wasn't just out. She was at Lacey's. And she wasn't even pretending otherwise anymore. Saturday mornings used to be our ritual. Pancakes, coffee, the radio on low while she told me about her week. Now the kitchen was quiet except for the tick of the wall clock. I tried not to look at her social media, but curiosity won. There she was. Selfies at Lacey's apartment, brunches at trendy spots, shopping trips. They looked like best friends, not a mother and daughter catching up after years apart. The comments under the photos stung more than I wanted to admit. "You two are twins. So glad you're finally together again. Real moms always find their way back." I closed the app and set my phone face down. On Monday afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Carver at the grocery store. She'd known Emily since she was little. "Haven't seen Emily around lately," she said. "Is she away at school?" "No, just spending more time with her mother," I replied, forcing a smile. Mrs. Carver raised her brows. "Her mother? I thought you—" I cut her off gently. "It's complicated." And it was getting more complicated by the day. The next time Emily came by, it was just to grab a suitcase. "What's this for?" I asked. She zipped it closed without looking at me. "Lacey invited me to stay for a few weeks. She says it'll give us time to catch up." A few weeks. My voice cracked before I could stop it. "Yeah, I'll still come by, but I think it's good for me to have space." Space. That word lodged itself in my chest like a stone. I didn't argue. Arguing now would only push her further. Instead, I helped carry her things to the car. She hugged me quickly, distracted, and drove off. The driveway felt emptier than it had in years. By midweek, the house felt too big, too quiet. I kept the TV on for background noise, but it didn't fill the hollow spaces. I decided to keep myself busy. The garden needed tending. The pantry needed reorganizing. But no matter what I did, my thoughts wandered to Emily. What was Lacey telling her now? What little pieces of the past was she twisting? On Friday, Helen dropped by unannounced. She found me sitting at the dining table, sorting through more photo albums. "You're torturing yourself," she said, sitting down across from me. "I'm trying to remember that we have history she can't erase," I replied. Helen tapped the table. "History doesn't always win against novelty. Lacey's new. She's shiny. Emily's curious. That's dangerous." I knew she was right. Emily wasn't just being pulled toward her mother's version of the past. She was being pulled toward the possibility of a future that didn't include me. The next day, I got a call from an old neighbor who lived near Lacey's apartment. "You're not going to like this," she said. "I saw Emily with Lacey at a real estate office yesterday. Looked like they were meeting with an agent." A chill ran through me. Real estate. Yeah. Sounded like Lacey was telling her about buying a place together. Buying a place together. That wasn't just reconnecting, that was planning a shared future. One that would plant Emily firmly in Lacey's orbit. That Sunday evening, Emily stopped by briefly to pick up some mail. I tried to sound casual. "I heard you were looking at apartments," I said. He paused, then sighed. "Lacey just mentioned it. She thinks it'd be nice for us to live together for a while. It's not a big deal." "It's a big deal to me," I said quietly. Emily looked at me with something between frustration and pity. "Maggie, I'm not leaving you. I just want to see what it's like." I wanted to tell her that seeing what it's like could turn into never coming back faster than she realized. But I bit my tongue. Because if I pushed too hard now, I might lose her before I had a chance to make her see the truth. That night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, the house creaking in the stillness. I realized that I couldn't just sit back and hope she'd come to her senses. Lacey was moving quickly, and if I didn't act soon, I'd be left behind entirely. But the question was, how do you fight for someone's love without making them feel like they're being held hostage? I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew I had to find it. The next morning, I woke with a decision already forming in my mind. If I wanted to protect Emily, I couldn't just sit here and hope she'd realize the truth on her own. Lacey was actively reshaping her version of the past and now apparently the future. I needed to know exactly what I was up against. I started small. A quick internet search turned up more than I expected. Old news articles, social media posts, even a few court records. The first thing that caught my eye was from 8 years ago. A bankruptcy filing in Lacey's name. The documents showed unpaid credit cards, a repossessed car, and a string of short-term jobs that never lasted more than a few months. None of that surprised me. What did surprise me was the most recent entry, 6 months ago. Another filing. Another collapse. And yet here she was now, taking Emily to expensive salons, buying her designer jackets, talking about getting an apartment together. Where was that money coming from? I printed the articles and records, sliding them into a manila folder. Not because I planned to throw them in Emily's face, but because I needed to be sure my instincts weren't just coming from jealousy or fear. This was about patterns Emily couldn't see yet. By afternoon, I decided to take a drive into the city. Lacey's building was one of those mid-rise complexes with glass balconies and a lobby that smelled faintly of lemon polish. I sat in my car across the street watching. Within an hour, I saw her leave, dressed head to toe in clothes that screamed I'm doing well. She got into a car I didn't recognize, shiny and new with dealer plates still on it. Something about that didn't add up. I was so lost in thought that I almost didn't notice the man who came out of the building after her. He was tall with a careful, tailored look. Someone who'd never been in the neighborhood I raised Emily in. He got into a different car, but not before stopping to speak to Lacey briefly in the parking lot. They laughed. They touched hands in a way that didn't feel casual. My stomach twisted. Later that evening, I called Helen. She's not just reconnecting with Emily, I told her. She's creating an image, one that isn't real. Of course she is, Helen said. That's what people like her do. They sell a version of themselves that people want to believe in. But the truth catches up eventually. Not if she moves fast enough, I replied. And she's moving fast. Helen was quiet for a moment. Then you need to move faster. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Emily called on Thursday night. Lacey's hosting a little get-together this weekend. She said I could invite you. I almost said no out of reflex. The idea of sitting in Lacey's space, surrounded by her charm offensive, made my skin crawl. But then I realized, this was my chance to see her in action. I'll be there, I said. When I walked into the apartment that Saturday, I immediately understood the pull. Everything looked picture-perfect. Plush rugs, candles flickering on every surface, framed photos of Lacey and Emily smiling together like they'd never been apart. Emily lit up when she saw me. Maggie, you made it. Lacey approached, arms open. Maggie, so good to see you. Can I get you something to drink? Her voice was warm, but her eyes held something calculating. As the night went on, I watched her work the room. She made sure to drop little comments about how hard it had been to be away from Emily, how much she regretted not being there. She said it just loud enough for me to hear, but never directly to me. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was taking mental notes. At one point, I stepped onto the balcony for some air. That's when I heard her voice behind me, low but sharp. She'll come around. It's just a matter of time before she sees who really has her best interests at heart. I didn't have to guess who she was talking about. The next morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I wasn't going to confront her outright, not yet. That would only make me look defensive. Instead, I would start talking to people who knew her now. Neighbors, coworkers, anyone who might see the cracks in the story she was selling. Because sooner or later I was going to need to show Emily something undeniable. And when that moment came, I wanted to be ready. I didn't tell Emily what I was doing. If I had, she would have called it snooping or being controlling. But I knew the truth. This was protecting her. The morning after Lacey's gathering, I drove back to her neighborhood. I didn't go into her building, just parked across the street again and waited. Lacey left just after 9, dressed in workout clothes but wearing full makeup. She wasn't going to a gym. I followed. Far enough not to be obvious, close enough to keep her in sight. She pulled into a parking lot beside a cafe. Through the glass windows, I watched her sit at a corner table with the same man I'd seen outside her apartment. He leaned across the table, touching her hand again. They talked for almost an hour. I couldn't hear a word, but the body language was unmistakable. This wasn't a business meeting. When they left, they didn't go separate ways. He opened the passenger door of his car for her, and she slid in with a smile that didn't look like the one she gave Emily. They drove off together. By the time I got home, my mind was racing. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about understanding exactly who Lacey was building her life around. I called Helen. She's involved with someone, I told her. Helen whistled softly. Think Emily knows? Not a chance. And I don't know if it's serious, but it's secret. Which makes me wonder, what else is she keeping quiet? Helen's voice turned thoughtful. If you can find out who he is, you might get answers you didn't even know you were looking for. So I started small again. I went back to the cafe that afternoon and asked the waitress if she recognized the man. She did. Said he'd been coming in for months, always meeting the same woman. When I showed her a photo of Lacey from social media, she nodded immediately. Yep, that's her. They come in a lot. He drives a black BMW. That gave me a place to start. For the next week, I played a quiet game of observation. I learned his license plate number, then ran it through an old contact of mine, an ex-neighbor who now worked in a local government office. The name that came back made my stomach drop. Robert Markham. Divorced. Early 50s. Owner of a small but profitable construction business in the city. And, according to public records, recently sold a property for just over $400,000. It didn't take a detective to connect the dots. Lacey didn't have money of her own, but she had Robert. And Robert had money, which meant her new life wasn't really hers at all. It was borrowed from someone who, for all I knew, could walk away at any moment. The temptation to march straight to Emily and tell her everything was almost unbearable. But Helen's voice stayed in my head. History doesn't always win against novelty. If I told Emily now, she'd hear it as jealousy. It would only make Lacey's hold stronger. No, I needed to wait until I could show her something undeniable. That proof came sooner than expected. On Friday afternoon, I was back in my car across from Lacey's building when Robert arrived. He parked, got out, and headed toward the entrance. But before he could open the door, his phone rang. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see his face. His expression shifted from calm to tense, then to something harder. Anger, maybe. He turned back to his car, slammed the door, and drove off. A few minutes later, Lacey emerged from the building, phone in hand, pacing on the sidewalk. He looked rattled. I didn't know what had happened between them, but it was clear whatever picture-perfect life she'd been painting for Emily had a crack in it. The question was, how could I widen that crack before it closed? That weekend, Emily came by to pick up some old clothes she'd left in her closet. She seemed tired, distracted. How are things with your mom? I asked carefully. She hesitated. Fine. Why? You just seem somewhere else. Emily shrugged. She's been stressed. Some stuff going on. I don't know the details. That was all she gave me. But it was enough to know the veneer was slipping. I decided then that my next step wouldn't be about gathering more dirt. It would be about strengthening my connection with Emily. Because when the truth about Lacey finally came into the light, I wanted her to have no doubt about where she'd find steady ground. I decided my best move was to create a moment Emily couldn't refuse. Something warm, familiar, and rooted in the life we'd shared. The opportunity came in the form of my niece Sarah's baby shower. Sarah and Emily had always been close, like sisters. The event was set for the following Saturday at my sister's house, and I knew Emily would come for Sarah's sake, even if her weekends were usually reserved for Lacey now. When I called to invite her, Emily hesitated. "I don't know," she said. "Mom's been going through some stuff. She might want me around." "This is important to Sarah," I reminded her gently. "And it would mean a lot to me too." After a pause, Emily agreed. The day of the shower, I wore my best floral dress and baked my famous lemon pound cake. When Emily walked in, her eyes lit up briefly at the sight of the food table, the balloons, the soft music playing in the background. For a few hours it felt almost normal. We laughed together over baby name suggestions, took turns helping Sarah open gifts, and ate more cake than either of us needed. It was a glimpse of the bond we'd always had, a reminder, I hoped, of what was real. But the moment didn't last. Just after the games ended, the front door opened and there she was, Lacey. The room went quiet for a beat before Sarah stepped forward, all polite smiles. "Hi, can I help you?" "I'm just here to see Emily," Lacey said, her voice bright but edged. "She didn't tell me she'd be at a family event. Thought I'd surprise her." Emily's face went pale. "Mom, this is—" "Oh, don't worry," Lacey interrupted, sweeping her gaze over the room. "I'm not here to intrude. Just wanted to say hello." But she wasn't leaving. She walked in as if she belonged there, and I could feel the tension ratcheting up with every step she took. I tried to keep the mood light, introducing her to relatives she'd never met. Some offered stiff smiles, others murmured polite greetings, but everyone could feel the undercurrent. This wasn't just a visit. It was a move. When the conversations broke into smaller groups, Lacey made her way toward Emily, speaking in a low voice that I couldn't quite catch. Emily glanced at me twice, each time with a flicker of guilt. At one point, I walked into the kitchen to grab more drinks and found Lacey standing by the sink, texting quickly. She looked up, her smile practiced. "Nice party," she said. "I'm glad you came," I replied evenly. "Sarah appreciates Emily being here." Her smile tightened. "Emily and I have a lot of catching up to do. I'd hate for distractions to get in the way." I didn't rise to it. Emily's an adult. She makes her own choices. "Yes," Lacey said, her tone dipping just enough to carry the sting. "And she's making some good ones lately." By the end of the afternoon, I could see Emily was torn. She hugged Sarah goodbye, then me, but she left with Lacey. The emptiness in my chest wasn't just about her leaving. It was about the realization that this wasn't a tug-of-war anymore. Lacey wasn't just pulling her closer. She was planting herself firmly in Emily's daily life. And unless I found a way to shift the balance, I was going to lose her completely. That night, Helen came over for tea. I told her everything. She showed up uninvited? Helen shook her head. Classic power play. She wanted everyone to see she's part of the picture now. "I don't know how to fight someone who's playing a game I never wanted to be part of," I admitted. Helen leaned forward. "You don't fight her on her terms. You find the truth, the kind that can't be spun, and you put it right in front of Emily." I thought of Robert Markham, the new car, the secret meetings, the cracks I'd already seen forming. Maybe Helen was right. Maybe it was time to dig deeper, not just for leverage but for the truth Emily deserved to know. I woke the next morning with Helen's words still echoing in my mind. Find the truth, the kind that can't be spun. It was one thing to know Lacey had a man funding her lifestyle. It was another to have proof of the kind that could break through the wall Emily had built between us. But where to start? Robert Markham was a closed door for now. If I came at him directly, he'd likely run straight to Lacey. I needed another angle. That angle came from a place I hadn't expected: Facebook. It started as a simple scroll through Lacey's profile. She'd been posting more often lately. Photos of fancy dinners, a weekend at a vineyard, a new leather handbag that probably cost more than my first car. I wasn't looking for those. I was looking for the comments. And that's where I saw her name, Janice Whitmore. Janice's comment under one of Lacey's pictures wasn't much. "Some things never change." Could have meant anything. But something about the tone caught my attention. It wasn't the friendly nostalgia people usually posted under old acquaintances' updates. I clicked her name. Her profile was public. She lived 2 towns over, worked as a nurse at a small medical clinic. And more importantly, she'd been friends with Lacey since high school, judging by the old photos buried deep in her timeline. I didn't send a message right away. Instead, I clicked through post after post, piecing together the hints. Janice was the type to say exactly what she thought, and every time she commented on Lacey's photos, there was a subtle edge. By the third night of reading, I was convinced Janice knew something. So I sent her a message. "Hi Janice, I know we don't know each other, but I'm hoping you might be willing to talk to me about Lacey. It's important. I've raised Emily since she was born and I'm trying to understand some things. This isn't about gossip. It's about making sure she's safe." I didn't expect a reply, but she wrote back within an hour. "Maggie, I've been waiting for someone to ask. Lacey's a lot of things, but safe isn't one of them. You want to meet?" We met 2 days later at a diner halfway between our towns. She was a tall woman with a kind but tired face, the kind that had seen too many night shifts. After we ordered coffee, she got straight to it. "I knew Lacey back when she was still with Emily's father. You probably already know they weren't a great match." I nodded. "I was there for most of it." Janice leaned in. "What you might not know is why she really left. Everyone thinks it was about money or freedom, but it wasn't just that. She got mixed up with some bad people. Not criminals exactly, but the kind who drain you dry and disappear. And she's been chasing the same kind of life ever since." I asked her to explain. "She's always been a chameleon," Janice said. "She figures out what people want and she becomes it. I've seen her go from high society charity dinners to biker bars, all depending on who she's with. But the pattern's always the same. When the money or excitement runs out, so does she." Janice stirred her coffee slowly. "And she's doing it again, isn't she? With someone new?" I hesitated. "Yes. A man named Robert Markham." Janice's eyes narrowed. "You need to be careful. If she thinks you're interfering, she'll turn Emily against you completely." "She's already trying," I said quietly. Janice took a long breath. "Then you need more than just my word. I've still got some old things. Emails she sent me, even a few handwritten letters from when she was with another guy before Robert. She bragged about how easy it was to make him think she was his future. You can show those to Emily when the time comes." I stared at her. "Why are you helping me?" "Because Emily's a good kid. She deserves to know what kind of person she's dealing with before it's too late. And because..." She looked down at her coffee. "I watched Lacey do this to someone else I cared about and I didn't say anything. I'm not making that mistake twice." We exchanged numbers and she promised to dig through her old things. As I drove home, I felt the first flicker of hope in weeks. If Janice could give me proof of Lacey's history, a history Emily couldn't ignore, it might be the turning point I'd been waiting for. But I also knew Lacey. She didn't give up ground without a fight. And something told me she already suspected I was planning one. 3 days after meeting Janice, a small padded envelope appeared in my mailbox. There was no return address, but I knew who it was from the moment I saw the neat looping handwriting on the front. Inside were 2 manila folders and a note written on lined paper. "Maggie, here's what I could find. There's more, but these are the clearest examples of her pattern. Use them when you think the time is right. Be careful, Jay." I sat at my kitchen table and spread everything out. The first folder held printed emails, yellowed from age but still legible. They were from 2009, written to Janice while Lacey was involved with a man named Daniel Price. In them, she bragged about how easy it was to get Daniel to buy her things. First a gold necklace, then a trip to Miami. One email ended with a line that made my stomach twist. "He thinks I'm his forever. I'm just here until something better comes along." The second folder was more personal. 3 handwritten letters, each with Lacey's distinctive slanted cursive. They were from even earlier, back when she was barely in her 20s. In one, she described moving in with a boyfriend after only a few weeks, knowing he'd cover the rent while she figured things out. In another, she laughed about how playing sweet had gotten her out of a speeding ticket. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone. Dialed. Calculated. I stared at the papers for a long time, my tea going cold beside me. This was it. The kind of proof Helen had told me about. The kind Emily couldn't brush off as jealousy. But as much as my instincts screamed to show her right away, something in me hesitated. If I threw this down in front of her now, she might go straight to Lacey for an explanation. And Lacey, quick with her words, could spin it as old mistakes or jokes taken out of context. Though this needed timing. The timing came into focus later that evening when Emily called me for the first time in over a week. "Hey Mom," she said, her voice tired. I smiled at the sound of it. Hi, sweetheart. How's work? She hesitated. It's fine. Listen, could I come over tomorrow night? Just us. My heart gave a cautious leap. Of course. Is everything okay? I just need to talk, she said. It's been a weird week. After we hung up, I paced my living room. If Emily was coming to me, maybe she was already seeing cracks in Lacey's perfect picture. Maybe I didn't need to force the truth into her hands. Maybe I just needed to be ready to catch her when she started asking questions. So I put the folders back in the envelope and slid it into the top drawer of my desk. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd see where the conversation went. The next evening, Emily arrived looking worn out. She dropped her purse on the couch and sank into her favorite chair, the one she'd claimed as hers since she was 15. I feel like I'm living two lives, she said after a while. One with you, one with her. I kept my voice calm. And how's the one with her? Emily looked down at her hands. Complicated. He's been distracted. I don't know if it's work or something else, but it feels like I'm always trying to get her attention. I leaned forward slightly. Has she mentioned a man named Robert Markham? Emily's head snapped up. Why would you ask that? I watched her face carefully. Because I've seen her with him. And I think you deserve to know the whole story. She stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable in her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready for that, she said finally. But maybe soon. When she left that night, I knew I'd been right to wait. The time for showing her Janice's folders was close, but it would be her coming to me for answers, not the other way around. And when that moment came, I needed to be ready to put every piece of the puzzle on the table. The next week started quietly. Too quietly. Emily didn't call or text, and Lacey stayed off my radar entirely. No surprise visits, no awkward run-ins in the grocery store. It was the kind of silence that felt deliberate, like the air before a storm. I tried to keep myself busy, gardening, baking, helping Helen organize the church fundraiser. But under it all, my thoughts kept circling the same question. Was Emily pulling back because of me or because of something happening with Lacey? On Thursday afternoon, I got my answer. Helen called, her voice low and urgent. Maggie, you might want to sit down. I just saw Lacey. My grip on the phone tightened. Where? At that new cafe by the river. She wasn't alone. I didn't have to ask who the other was. Robert Markham? I said. Yes. And they didn't look like two people having a business meeting. Helen paused. They were holding hands. In the middle of the cafe. I felt the slow burn of anger in my chest. Not because I didn't expect it, by now I did, but because Emily still didn't know. The choice I'd been putting off was suddenly in front of me again. Wait for her to ask or bring her the truth now before Lacey spun a deeper web. By the time Helen hung up, I knew what I had to do. That night I called Emily. Sweetheart, I said carefully, are you free this weekend? I'd like us to spend some time together. Just us. There was a pause. I think so. Why? Because there are things I need to tell you. Things I've been holding back because I wanted to protect you. Her voice softened, but there was wariness there too. This is about Mom, isn't it? Yes, I said. And you deserve to know everything. Saturday came faster than I expected. I set the table for two, made her favorite chicken pot pie, and pulled Janice's envelope from my desk drawer, placing it beside my seat. When Emily arrived, she looked tired again, but there was something else in her eyes this time. A kind of guarded readiness. We made small talk through dinner, but when the plates were cleared, she didn't waste time. Okay, she said. Tell me. I slid the envelope toward her. What I'm about to show you isn't hearsay. It's not gossip. These are things Lacey wrote herself years before you reconnected with her. She hesitated before opening it, pulling out the first folder. Her eyes moved over the printed emails, her brow furrowing. She read silently for several minutes before setting them down. She wrote this? Yes, I said quietly. And there's more in the second folder. She opened it slowly, scanning the handwritten letters. I watched her face as she read. First confusion, then disbelief, then a flicker of something sharper. When she looked up at me, her voice was barely above a whisper. Why would she say these things? Why would she admit them to anyone? Because she didn't think they'd ever matter, I said. But they do. Especially now. Emily leaned back in her chair, staring at the papers. You've been holding on to this? I only got it recently, I said. From someone who's known her longer than either of us. I didn't want to shove it at you before you were ready. She looked down again, her thumb brushing over the edge of a letter. I don't know what to think. I reached across the table, my hand resting over hers. Think about what you've seen with your own eyes. Has she been there for you the way she should be? Or has she been distracted, pulled away by someone else? Emily didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. When she left that night, she took the envelope with her. I didn't know if that was a good sign or a bad one, but it meant she wasn't dismissing it outright. And that for now was enough. The storm broke 2 days later. It was Monday afternoon when my phone rang. Emily's name lit the screen. Her voice was shaking. I just saw her mom. At the cafe. With that man. She didn't see me. I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. I'm sorry, sweetheart. There was a pause. I think we need to talk again. But this time I want her there. Emily didn't waste time arranging the meeting. She called me that night and said Lacey had agreed, reluctantly, to meet us both at her apartment the following evening. Her voice over the phone was clipped, like she was holding herself together by sheer will. Mom, I need you to promise me something, she said. Anything. No yelling. No losing your temper. I need to hear the truth from both of you without it turning into a war. I promised, though I wasn't sure I could keep it. The next evening, I pulled into the small parking lot outside Lacey's building. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, my chest heavy. I'd never been inside her place before. Emily was already waiting near the front door, pacing. She gave me a brief hug but didn't meet my eyes. She's in there, she said, nodding toward the stairwell. Are you ready? She gave a humorless laugh. Not really. But let's do it. The apartment was smaller than I expected. Neat but staged, like it was meant to impress visitors. On the coffee table sat a vase of fresh lilies, their scent sharp in the air. Lacey sat on the couch, legs crossed, wearing a silky blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She smiled tightly as we entered. Maggie, she said. To what do I owe the pleasure? Emily sat in the armchair opposite her. I took the spot beside my daughter, close enough that she could feel my presence, but not so close it seemed like I was crowding her. I think you know why we're here, Emily said, her voice steady. Lacey tilted her head. I can guess. This is about Robert, isn't it? My heart thudded. She wasn't even trying to deny it. Emily leaned forward. I saw you with him. Holding hands. Was I imagining that? Lacey's smile didn't waver, but there was a flicker in her eyes. Robert is a friend. A good friend. And if you're implying more than that. I'm not implying, Emily cut in. I'm asking. Are you involved with him? The silence stretched until it was almost unbearable. Finally, Lacey sighed. Fine. Yes. I've been seeing Robert. But it's not what you think. I couldn't stay quiet any longer. Then what is it, Lacey? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what we think. Her eyes snapped to mine. Oh, of course. You'd love to paint me as the villain. You always have. Emily held up a hand. Stop. Both of you. I'm not here to referee. I just want the truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope Janice had given me. I placed it on the coffee table between us. These are letters and emails you wrote, Lacey. Years of the same pattern. Latching onto someone until you get what you want, then moving on. This isn't about Robert alone. This is about who you are. Lacey's face went pale for the briefest moment before the color returned. She picked up the envelope, flipped through the papers, then tossed it back onto the table. And what exactly does this prove? That I made mistakes when I was younger? Show me someone who hasn't. Emily looked at her, then at me. Is that true? Are these just mistakes? I met her gaze. Sweetheart, you know better. You've seen how she treats people. How she treats you when she's distracted by someone else. Lacey leaned back, crossing her arms. You've had it out for me since the day we met. You've been waiting for me to slip so you could tell Emily, I told you so. I kept my voice calm. This isn't about me winning anything. This is about her knowing the truth before she gets hurt any more than she already has. Emily stood up, her face pale but her jaw set. I need some air. She walked to the balcony, sliding the door open. When she was gone, Lacey turned on me, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won something here? You haven't. If she walks away from me, that's on you. I met her stare. If she walks away from you, it's because of you, Lacey. Not me. She didn't reply, but the fury in her eyes said more than words could. Emily came back in a few minutes later, her expression unreadable. She looked from me to Lacey. I don't know where we go from here, she said. But I know one thing, I need space. From both of you. I can't think when you're both in my ear. The words hit me like a slap, but I nodded. If that's what you need, I'll give it to you. Lacey said nothing, just picked at the edge of her sleeve. As I left that night, I had the sinking feeling that this confrontation hadn't ended anything. It had only deepened the fault lines. And somewhere deep down, I knew Lacey wasn't finished. The week after the confrontation felt like someone had turned the volume down on my life. No calls from Emily. No surprise visits. Not even a text to say she was okay. I tried telling myself she was just taking the space she'd asked for, but the longer the silence stretched, the harder it was to believe. Every creak of the house at night, every buzz of my phone during the day, made my heart leap and sink again when it wasn't her. Helen noticed the change right away. She stopped by on Thursday with a casserole and a soft look in her eyes. Any word? She asked as I poured her coffee. I shook my head. Not a thing. She's probably just processing, Helen said gently. I wanted to believe her, but I'd been a mother long enough to recognize when someone was avoiding me. By Saturday, I decided I couldn't keep sitting in limbo. If Emily wasn't ready to talk, I could at least make sure she knew my door was still open. I drove to her apartment building mid-morning, a small box of her favorite pastries on the passenger seat. It was my olive branch. No lectures, no accusations, just a reminder that I was still here. The elevator ride to the third floor felt like it took hours. When I reached her door, I took a deep breath and knocked. It wasn't Emily who opened the door. Lacey stood there, perfectly put together in a fitted sweater and gold hoop earrings, her expression cool. Maggie, she said flatly. I held up the pastry box. I came to see Emily. She's not here. Do you know when she'll be back? She's busy, Lacey said, leaning against the doorframe. And honestly, I think it would be best if you gave her the space she asked for. I felt my jaw tighten. That's for her to decide, not you. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She's deciding, Maggie. And from what I can tell, she's happier without all the gay drama. I took a breath, willing myself not to snap. If you're keeping her away from me. I'm not keeping her anywhere, Lacey said smoothly. She's an adult. She can make her own choices. And with that, she stepped back and closed the door. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the blank wood. A part of me wanted to knock again, harder this time, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of something through the small gap in the curtains of her front window. 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, and a familiar navy blazer draped over the back of the couch. Roberts. I drove home with a pit in my stomach. Lacey wasn't just winning Emily's ear. She was entrenching herself in her daily life. If Emily was spending more and more time in that apartment, surrounded by Lacey's influence, how long before she started believing everything Lacey told her about me? I thought about calling Janice, but I already knew what she'd say. Don't let her get the upper hand. Stay close to Emily, even if you have to be creative about it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. I typed out a dozen different messages to Emily, then deleted them all. Everything either sounded too pushy or too apologetic. In the end, I sent just 5 words. I'm here when you're ready. She didn't reply. On Sunday morning, I decided to try a different approach. Emily still went to the farmer's market downtown most weekends. It was one of her favorite routines. If I happened to be there, maybe we could at least have a brief conversation without Lacey filtering it. I got there early, wandering between stalls until I spotted her near the flower stand. She was alone, her hair pulled back, a tote bag slung over her shoulder. When she saw me, she froze for half a second before forcing a smile. Hi, Mom. I smiled back, relief flooding me. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I'm okay, she said cautiously. Just getting some groceries. We made small talk as we walked toward the bakery stall, but there was a wall between us now, thin but solid. I could feel it in the way she chose her words, in the way her eyes drifted when the conversation veered toward anything personal. Finally, I decided to risk it. Emily, I don't want to push, but I miss you. I miss how things used to be. Her expression softened, but only for a moment. I know, Mom. I just need to figure some things out. Figure them out with me, I said quietly. She hesitated, then shook her head. Not yet. And with that she stepped away to pay for her bread. I watched her walk off, feeling the distance grow again. The following Thursday evening I was making tea when my phone buzzed. The caller ID made my stomach tighten. It was Emily's boss, Marjorie. "Maggie," she said after I answered, "I thought I should let you know. Emily listed Lacey as her emergency contact this week. I just wanted to check. Has something happened between you two?" I gripped the counter. She what? I figured it might be a mistake, but when I asked her she said it was correct. Said Lacey was the one she'd want called if something happened at work. I thanked her for telling me and hung up, my tea forgotten. It wasn't about the contact list. It was about what it symbolized. Lacey wasn't just in Emily's life. She was replacing me in roles that had been mine for decades. For a moment I considered calling Emily right then and there, demanding to know why. But deep down I knew that would only make her dig in further. Instead I sat at the kitchen table thinking. Lacey's strategy was clear. She wanted to become indispensable. If Emily saw her as the go-to in emergencies, it would only be a matter of time before she saw her as the one to trust in everything else. That night I decided to visit Janice. She'd been in this town longer than anyone and had a knack for reading people. Janice listened quietly as I explained. Then she leaned back, folding her arms. "You can't out-argue someone like Lacey. She'll twist every word. You need to remind Emily who you really are, not just in her head but in her heart." "How do I do that when I can barely get 2 minutes with her?" "You make your own minutes," Janice said. "Go where she is. Show up for her in ways Lacey can't fake." The very next day I learned just how urgent that advice was. I stopped by the library to return a book and nearly collided with Mrs. Collins, one of the women from the church committee. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Maggie, I didn't know you'd moved," she said. "I haven't." "Oh, well, Lacey was saying at the salon yesterday that you were thinking about going to live with a cousin out west. Said you wanted a fresh start." I felt my jaw tighten. "That's not true." Mrs. Collins's smile faltered. I thought it sounded odd, but she said Emily was taking it hard. It was the oldest trick in the book. Make someone doubt where they stand, then slide into the empty space. By the time I got home I'd decided Janice was right. This wasn't the time to retreat. It was the time to remind Emily of the history she and I shared, the kind of history Lacey could never rewrite. The perfect chance came on Saturday afternoon. The community center was hosting a small art fair, and I knew Emily had been planning to go for months. She loved local art, always buying a piece or two for her apartment. I arrived early and waited near the entrance. When she showed up I stepped forward. "Hey, stranger." She blinked in surprise. "Mompai, I didn't know you'd be here. I thought I'd take a look around. Mind if I join you?" At first she seemed hesitant, but she didn't say no. We wandered between booths, chatting about paintings and pottery. For a little while it felt almost normal again. When we reached a table of framed black and white photographs, Emily picked one up and smiled. "This reminds me of that trip we took to Maine when I was 14. Remember the lighthouse?" I smiled back. "Of course. You climbed halfway up before you decided the stairs were too narrow." She laughed, and for a moment her guard dropped. I could see the girl I'd raised, the one who used to come to me for everything. But just as I was starting to feel hopeful, I saw the shift in her expression. Lacey had arrived. She walked up with that same confident stride, holding a cup of coffee, and slipped an arm around Emily's shoulders like she owned the place. "Maggie," she said, all fake sweetness. "What a surprise." Emily stiffened slightly and I could tell she was torn. "Just enjoying the fair," I said. "Well, Emily promised she'd help me pick something for my living room," Lacey said pointedly. And just like that I was on the outside again. I stayed long enough to browse a few more tables, then excused myself. But as I walked to my car I knew one thing for certain. Lacey wasn't going to slow down. She was tightening her grip, one small act at a time. And if I didn't act soon I risked losing my daughter for good. By Sunday morning the tension had settled into my bones like a winter chill. I couldn't stop replaying the scene at the art fair. How quickly Emily had slipped from laughing with me to leaning into Lacey's arm. It wasn't just about Lacey being there. It was about what that arm around her shoulders symbolized. Possession, influence, a claim to space in Emily's life that had once been mine without question. I'd spent weeks tiptoeing, afraid to push too hard. But now I could see that waiting was exactly what Lacey wanted. The longer I stayed quiet, the more room she had to rewrite the narrative of who I was and what I meant to Emily. That afternoon, I sat at my dining table with an old wooden box in front of me. Inside were photographs, birthday cards, school drawings, and a few mementos from Emily's childhood. Things I had saved because they were pieces of us. Our story, our proof. I picked up a crayon drawing she had made when she was 5. It was a lopsided picture of us in the backyard, me holding her hand, the sun drawn twice as big as our heads. In the corner, in her uneven letters, it said me and Mommy. My throat tightened. This wasn't something Lacey could manufacture. This was real. I decided right then to make a memory book for Emily. A tangible reminder of our years together, something she could hold in her hands and flip through whenever she needed to remember who I truly was to her. I spent the rest of the day at the kitchen table sorting through old photo albums. There was Emily's first day of kindergarten, her hair in 2 crooked pigtails. The picture of us baking cookies the night before her high school science fair. Her college graduation, my arms wrapped around her despite the crowd. As I laid them out, I thought about adding small handwritten notes with each one. Not explanations, not accusations, just the feelings I had in those moments. By Monday, the scrapbook was halfway done. I had decorated it with simple borders and pressed flowers from my garden. I kept the focus on the pictures and the notes, letting the memories speak for themselves. It was almost therapeutic sifting through the years. But it also hurt. Every page was a reminder of how much we had once been to each other, and how far apart we were now. When I finished the final page, I sat back and looked at it. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was the point. The next question was how to give it to her. Handing it over in person might feel confrontational, especially if Lacey was around. Mailing it felt too impersonal. Then I remembered that Emily still went to yoga every Wednesday evening. If I timed it right, I could leave it at her apartment for her to find when she got home. The idea gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in weeks. Wednesday evening, I parked a block from her building so I wouldn't be seen from the front windows. I walked up with the scrapbook in a brown paper bag, my heart pounding. Her apartment door was locked, of course, but she had a small table in the hallway where packages were usually left. I set the bag there with a note on top. Emily, I made this for you. No expectations, no pressure. Just our story as it happened. Love, Mom. I hesitated for a long moment before walking away. Part of me wanted to wait in the shadows and see her reaction, but I knew that would defeat the point. This wasn't about forcing her hand, it was about planting a seed. I didn't hear from her the next day, or the day after. By Friday, I was starting to wonder if she'd even opened it. Then late that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. I saw the book. I'm not sure what to say yet, but thank you. My chest loosened. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't even close to the conversations we needed to have. But it was a crack in the wall. A small opening. The next morning, I called Janice to tell her. She chuckled softly. See? You reminded her of the truth without pushing. That's what sticks. But my relief was short-lived. That afternoon, I got another call, from Helen this time. Maggie, I don't know if you've heard, but Lacey's telling people you're trying to guilt Emily into cutting her out. She even told the folks at the community center that you've been leaving emotional traps for her. I gripped the phone tighter. Emotional traps? That scrapbook apparently. She said it was manipulative. I ended the call and sat down hard on the couch. Of course Lacey would twist it. Of course she'd make something heartfelt into something ugly. But this time I wasn't going to retreat. If she wanted to turn this into a battle of narratives, then I'd be ready. I had the truth and decades of lived proof on my side. The following Monday morning, I stopped by the community center to drop off some donations for the food drive. It was one of those crisp autumn days where the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and the leaves crunched underfoot. Normally, this place was a refuge for me. Somewhere to volunteer, chat with friends, and forget about the storm brewing at home. But the moment I stepped inside, I could feel something was off. Conversations dipped as I passed. Smiles were polite but tight. A few people avoided eye contact altogether. It didn't take long to find out why. "Morning, Maggie," said Tom, one of the coordinators, with an uneasy glance. I heard you've been having some family trouble." I forced a calm smile. Everyone has family trouble at some point. He hesitated. "Sure, but well, Lacey came by Saturday. If concerned. Said you've been putting Emily in a tough spot emotionally. That you've been," her words, using your history together to guilt her into staying in your life. My stomach turned cold. She said that to you? Not just me, Tom said carefully. She mentioned it to a few folks here. I think she wanted people to be understanding. Understanding of what? That I was some manipulative old woman who couldn't let go? I thanked Tom for telling me, but inside anger simmered. Lacey's game was clear. Discredit me publicly so that if Emily did start to reconnect with me, people would think it was out of obligation, not choice. By the time I got home, my hands were trembling, not from fear but from the effort of holding my tongue. That night I called Janice. She's getting bolder, I said. Now she's talking about me in public spaces, painting me as the problem. She's hoping you'll lose your temper and prove her point, Janice replied. Don't give her that. If she's going public, maybe it's time you did too, but on your own terms. Her words stuck with me. I'd spent weeks on the defensive, reacting to whatever Lacey did next. Maybe it was time to shift the ground beneath her feet. The next morning I went to my closet and pulled down a dusty box from the top shelf. Inside were not just old photos but letters, report cards, even the adoption papers from when Emily had legally become mine. Proof, cold, undeniable proof, that I wasn't some woman who had clung to a child who didn't belong to her. I was her mother in every legal and emotional sense. I knew showing this to Emily outright might still backfire. But what if I let the truth speak for itself in a way Lacey couldn't spin? The idea came together over coffee. I'd host a small memories night at my house. I'd invite a few people who had known Emily growing up. Neighbors, family, friends, her old piano teacher. I'd make it casual about sharing stories and looking through old photos. It wouldn't be about confronting anyone. It would be about surrounding Emily with living reminders of our shared history. That Thursday I called Emily. Hi, sweetheart, I began, keeping my tone light. I'm having a little get-together on Sunday. Just some folks who haven't seen you in a while. We'll have pie, coffee, maybe look through some old albums. I'd love for you to come, but no pressure. There was a pause. Who's going to be there? Just people you know and like, I said. Mrs. Johnson from next door, Helen, a couple of others. I thought it might be nice. Another pause. Hey, I can come for a bit. When I hung up, relief washed over me. But it was short-lived because a thought occurred to me. If Emily mentioned this to Lacey, there was a good chance Lacey would show up too. I decided not to dwell on it. I'd handle that bridge if I came to it. Sunday arrived cold and bright. The house smelled of cinnamon from the apple pies cooling on the counter. I'd set out coffee mugs, soft blankets, and a stack of photo albums in the living room. The first guests arrived right on time, filling the house with easy chatter. When Emily walked in 20 minutes later, my heart lifted. She looked a little guarded, but she smiled when she saw Mrs. Johnson and hugged Helen warmly. For the first hour it went beautifully. People told stories about Emily's childhood, laughed over the time she tried to turn the backyard into a science experiment zone, and accidentally flooded part of the lawn. I watched her face soften as she listened, watched the small smile that kept appearing when someone mentioned a memory she'd forgotten. And then the doorbell rang. When I opened it, there stood Lacey. I heard you were having a party, she said smoothly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I caught Emily's expression over Lacey's shoulder. Surprise, maybe even a flicker of discomfort, but she didn't say anything. Lacey made her way into the living room, positioning herself beside Emily. I could feel her eyes on me every time someone spoke. If Lacey had hoped to control the conversation, she was in for a surprise. When Mrs. Johnson brought out an old class photo and pointed to Emily in the front row, she said, "Oh, I remember when Maggie used to walk you to school every morning, rain or shine. Half the neighborhood kids wanted to go with you too." Helen chimed in about the time Emily had been sick in middle school and I'd stayed up all night with her, reading books and making soup. Every story was a thread weaving us closer together in front of everyone in that room. Lacey smiled politely, but I could see the strain in her jaw. This wasn't a space she could dominate with quiet whispers or private accusations. This was a room full of witnesses to the truth. When it was time for dessert, I brought out one of the albums. Emily sat beside me, flipping through the pages. She lingered on a picture of us at the beach when she was 10, our feet buried in the sand. "I forgot about this day," she said softly. I smiled. "One of my favorites." For the first time in weeks, I saw warmth in her eyes that wasn't shadowed by hesitation. It wasn't a victory. Not yet. But it was a shift. A reminder that the bond we'd built over decades couldn't be erased in a few months of someone else's interference. And I intended to build on that shift no matter what came next. The glow from Sunday's gathering lingered in my chest for days. For the first time in months, I felt the faintest pull back toward what Emily and I had once shared. But hope can make you forget how quickly the tide can turn. It happened on Thursday evening. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. Emily's voice came through, but it was tight-clipped. "Mom, we need to talk," she said. My hands froze over the basket. "Okay, what's going on? I don't want to do this over the phone. Can I come by?" "Of course." I spent the next half hour pacing the living room, trying not to imagine the worst. But when Emily arrived, I could see it immediately. Her walls were up again. She sat on the edge of the couch, handbag still on her lap. "Lacey told me something," she began. "And I think I need to hear your side before I decide how I feel." My stomach tightened. "All right. What did she say?" "She said you've been talking to people about my birth mother. About things I never asked to know." For a moment I couldn't speak. "Emily, I haven't." "She said you told Mrs. Collins at the church that my birth mother didn't want me. That she gave me up without a second thought." I shook my head sharply. "That's not true. I would never say it like that. I haven't been talking about her at all." "Lacey's twisting something again." Emily frowned, but I could see doubt flicker across her face. "She said she only told me because she didn't want me blindsided if people started gossiping." There was Lacey's pattern playing out again. Drop a bomb, make it look like she's protecting Emily, and let me scramble to prove my innocence. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. "Emily, I have always respected what you do and don't want to know about your birth mother. I've never gone around telling people her business or yours." Her eyes searched mine for a long moment. "I want to believe you." "Then believe me," I said softly. We sat in silence for a while. Finally she sighed. "I don't know what to think anymore. Every time I start to feel like things are okay between us, something else comes up." "That's not an accident," I told her. "It's because someone wants to keep us from trusting each other." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't deny it. "I need some space to figure this out." And just like that she was gone. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes I saw Emily's face, caught between me and Lacey, between the history we shared and the narrative she was being fed. By morning I'd made a decision. If Lacey was willing to weaponize lies about Emily's birth mother, then I needed to be ready to defend the truth with proof that couldn't be argued away. I pulled out my file cabinet and began searching. It took hours, but I found what I was looking for. A sealed envelope from the adoption agency, still unopened after all these years. Inside was the official report. Every detail of the day I brought Emily home, every signature that made me her legal mother. I'd never shown it to Emily because I'd wanted to protect her from the cold formality of it. But maybe now was the time. So I hesitated. There's a difference between having proof and knowing when to use it. Later that afternoon I went for a walk to clear my head. The crisp wind carried the scent of burning leaves, and the sidewalks were scattered with gold and red. I wandered past the bakery, the hardware store, the little cafe where Emily and I used to have Sunday breakfast. And that's when I saw them, Emily and Lacey, sitting at a table by the window. Lacey was leaning forward, speaking intently, her hand resting on Emily's arm. Emily's brow was furrowed and she nodded slowly as if absorbing something heavy. I stopped in my tracks. My first instinct was to go in, but I forced myself to keep walking. Confronting them there would only make me look volatile. Exactly what Lacey would want. When I got home I called Janice. "She's trying to poison the well," I said. "Every time Emily and I make an inch of progress, she pours something bitter into it." "So you stop playing by her timing," Janice replied. "You choose when and how the big conversations happen." I thought about the sealed envelope again. Maybe Janice was right. Maybe the only way to cut through the fog was with the truth, laid bare, without Lacey there to interrupt or interpret. That night I placed the envelope on my kitchen table. I sat across from it, staring like it was some wild animal that might bite. It held the beginning of our story, not the emotional lived part but the legal, undeniable part. If Emily could see that, maybe she'd remember that I wasn't a placeholder or a convenient caretaker. I was her mother in every way that mattered. I just had to decide when to let her see it. By Friday morning my decision was made. I wasn't going to let another week pass with Emily caught in a fog of half-truths and lies. She needed to see the adoption papers for herself, needed to hold them in her hands, feel the weight of them, and know without a shadow of doubt that our bond wasn't just emotional but legal, permanent, and deliberate. I placed the sealed envelope into my handbag and poured myself a cup of coffee, rehearsing in my head how I'd approach her. I didn't want it to sound defensive or like I was attacking Lacey. I wanted it to be about us, about truth. My plan was to stop by her apartment in the late afternoon, when she was usually home from work but before Lacey had a chance to arrive. But life and Lacey had other plans. Around noon my phone rang. It was Helen, her voice hushed like she was telling me state secrets. Maggie. I don't know how to say this, but Lacey was at the community center again this morning. She was showing people a document. I stiffened. What kind of document? She claimed it was from the adoption agency. Said it proves you took Emily in only after her mother begged you, and that you've exaggerated your role all these years. My blood went cold. That's not true. And there's no way she has any legal document. Those records were sealed. Helen sighed. She said she had a friend who works in records. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But people were listening. I hung up and sat there in stunned silence. Not only was Lacey spreading more lies, but she'd escalated to forging or twisting official-looking paperwork. It was a smart move on her part. Too smart. Most people won't question a document if it's printed on letterhead and handed to them with confidence. And if Emily saw whatever Lacey was parading around before I could show her the real thing. I grabbed my keys and the envelope, my heart pounding as I drove across town to Emily's apartment. When she opened the door, her expression was wary. "Mom, what's going on?" "I need to show you something," I said, stepping inside. "And I need you to see it before anyone else tells you another version." She hesitated, but she closed the door. I sat down at her kitchen table, pulled the envelope from my bag and slid it toward her. "These are the official adoption papers," I said. "Every signature, every date. I've kept them sealed because I wanted to protect you from the impersonal way the system puts a family into words. But I can't keep them from you anymore." Emily's eyes dropped to the envelope. She didn't reach for it right away. "Lacey said she saw something different. That my birth mother insisted you keep me temporarily, until she could get back on her feet." I swallowed hard. That's not what happened. And if she claims to have paperwork that says otherwise, it's either fake or misrepresented. This, I tapped the envelope, is the truth. Slowly Emily opened it. She read the first page in silence, then the second. Her hands trembled just slightly, but her eyes kept moving down the lines. When she reached the final signature, mine, she looked up. "This says, permanent guardianship to adoption without contest," she said, her voice quiet. "Yes," I said. "Your birth mother made her choice and I made mine. I didn't just take you in. I fought for you to be my daughter in every way the law allows." Emily stared at the papers for a long time, then set them down gently. "Why didn't you ever show me this before?" "Because I didn't want our relationship to be defined by paperwork," I said honestly. "I wanted it to be defined by the life we built together. But now, I can see that someone is trying to use the absence of proof as proof against me." She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her forehead. "I don't know what to believe anymore. It feels like I'm caught between two completely different stories and both of you swear yours is the truth." I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back, not angrily, just protectively. "Emily, I can't force you to believe me. All I can do is give you the truth in your hands, no spin, no agenda." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and I saw Lacey's name flash on the screen. She didn't answer, but the timing was too perfect. Lacey must have known I'd come here today. "I need time," Emily said, standing up. "I need to think without both of you pulling at me." I nodded, though it hurt. "Take whatever time you need. Just keep those papers somewhere safe." She gave a small nod and I left. The drive home felt heavier than any I'd taken in weeks. I had finally shown Emily the truth, but the damage Lacey had done was still there, clouding everything. And if Lacey really had forged something, or convinced people she had access to real records, then this wasn't just about Emily's trust anymore. This was about protecting my name. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone rang again. This time it was Janice. "Maggie, I just heard something," she said quickly. "Lacey's planning to host her own little gathering next weekend." She's inviting people from the community and apparently she's calling it a truth night. I gripped the steering wheel. A truth night. She's going to stand up in front of everyone and set the record straight about you and Emily's history. For a long moment I didn't speak. If Lacey was moving her lies into the public square, then my next move would have to be just as public, and just as undeniable. And this time I wasn't going to play nice. The phrase truth night clanged in my mind for days. It wasn't just another jab or whispered rumor. This was Lacey stepping into the spotlight, ready to put her version of Emily's life into the ears of anyone willing to listen. And once those words were out there, no matter how false, they'd leave stains I might never scrub away. I sat in my kitchen late into the night, staring at the adoption papers spread across the table. Under the yellow lamplight, the inked signatures looked almost like weapons. Proof, yes, but only if I used them the right way in the right moment. If Lacey wanted an audience, fine. I would have one too. The next morning I called Janice. She's not the only one who can host a gathering, I said. If she's planning to stand up in front of people, then I'm going to make sure they've heard my truth before they hear her lies. Janice didn't hesitate. We'll use the church hall. I'll talk to Pastor Ron and get you the space. We'll call it a community potluck. People will come for the food and they'll leave with the real story. I almost laughed at her bluntness, but she was right. This wasn't about turning my life into a debate. It was about telling the truth in a way that couldn't be twisted mid-sentence. By Monday, word had started to spread. I knew some folks would come just out of curiosity. Others would come because they were already leaning toward Lacey's side and wanted to see if I'd trip over my own words. But a few, just a few, might come because they still believed in me. I spent the next few days preparing, not just what I'd say but how I'd say it. No defensiveness. No anger. Just the facts, wrapped in the years of love that couldn't be faked. And I would bring the papers. Friday night arrived cold and clear. The church hall smelled faintly of coffee and cinnamon rolls, and tables lined with casseroles and pies gave the place a friendly glow. But beneath that warmth I could feel the tension humming in the air. I spotted Helen near the coffee urn, whispering with another woman. A few heads turned toward me, some with polite smiles, others with eyes that flickered away quickly. Janice gave me a firm pat on the arm. You've got this. Just remember, you're not here to win an argument. You're here to tell your story. When it was time, I stood at the front of the room with a microphone in my hand. My palms were damp, but my voice was steady. I appreciate you all being here tonight, I began. I know some of you have heard different things about me in recent months. About my relationship with my daughter Emily, about her birth mother, about the life we've shared. I can't control what's been said. But I can tell you what I know and I can show you proof. I held up the envelope, now open, the documents inside facing the audience. This is the official record of the day Emily became my legal daughter. Every signature is here, including her birth mother's, confirming that the adoption was permanent and uncontested. I read aloud key lines, not to embarrass Emily, but to make it clear that the decision had been made decades ago with finality and love. I talked about the years that followed. The scraped knees, the school plays, the late-night talks when she was homesick at college. My love for Emily didn't start with paperwork, I said. It started the day I held her in my arms. But the paperwork proves that what we built wasn't temporary. It wasn't conditional. It was, and is, forever. The room was quiet. I saw a few people exchange glances. Then from the back, a voice cut through. This all sounds nice, but Lacey says you've been trying to keep Emily from her real family. I turned toward the voice. Emily has always been free to know whatever she wants about her birth family. What I've protected her from is lies. Lies can hurt more than absence, and they can twist the truth so badly that it's hard to find your way back. My voice didn't shake. For the first time in months I felt grounded, not reacting to Lacey but standing in my own truth. When the potluck ended, a few people came up to thank me. Some still looked uncertain, but their eyes were softer. And in the corner, I saw Helen leaning in to whisper to Janice, both of them smiling faintly. I went home that night exhausted, but for the first time I felt like I'd taken a step forward instead of just fighting to keep from sliding backward. Still, I knew Lacey wouldn't let it end there. Truth night was still coming, and she'd be ready to counter every word I'd said. And Emily, she hadn't been at the hall at all. The following Saturday arrived with a sharp wind that cut through my coat as I walked from my car to the community center. This was Lacey's truth night. I had debated not going, letting her words dissolve into the air without giving them more weight by my presence. But something told me that staying home would be a mistake. If I wasn't there, she could spin her story without anyone to challenge it. And more importantly, Emily would be there. The moment I stepped inside, I saw her, standing near the back with her arms crossed. She spotted me but didn't smile. Still, she didn't look away either. Lacey, dressed in a deep red blazer, worked the room like she was running for office. She laughed too loudly, touched people's arms as she spoke, and made sure everyone saw her confidence. When she noticed me, her eyes sharpened, but she quickly covered it with a tight smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began once everyone had taken their seats, "I'm here tonight because I care about the truth. Too many people in this town have been misled about Emily's life, about who really stood by her and who tried to keep her from her roots." She paced slowly, her heels clicking against the tile. It's time the record was set straight. Then she pulled out a folder and began displaying papers on an easel. Photocopies with official-looking stamps. "Here is documentation showing that Maggie took Emily in under temporary guardianship, with the understanding that her birth mother could reclaim her once she was stable." A few people murmured. I stood. "That's not real," I said firmly. "Those are either forgeries or heavily altered. The actual adoption records say the opposite." Lacey smirked. "Of course you'd say that. You've kept Emily in the dark for years. You didn't want her to have contact with her birth family because it would mean you weren't the only one who loved her." Gasps rippled through the room. My hands tightened at my sides. "I've never claimed to be the only one who loved her. But I am the one who raised her. I'm the one who was there every single day. And the real documents prove it." I reached into my bag and pulled out the original adoption papers. "These aren't copies. These aren't manipulated. These are the signed, sealed legal truth." Lacey stepped forward, but before she could speak, Emily's voice rang out. "Stop." The room fell silent. Emily walked to the center of the floor, her eyes moving between us. "I'm sick of feeling like a rope in a tug-of-war. I've heard both of you and I've seen enough to know someone's lying." She took the papers from my hands, scanning them. Then she looked at the ones Lacey had displayed. "These don't match," she said, holding them side by side. "Not even close." Lacey's smile faltered. "Honey, sometimes records get updated." "Don't," Emily cut in sharply. "I may not know every detail about my birth mother, but I know when someone's trying to manipulate me. And I'm done being manipulated." He turned to me. "You should have shown me these sooner. But at least they're real." The relief that surged through me was almost dizzying. Emily faced Lacey again. "I don't know why you've spent so much energy trying to make me hate her, but it stops now. If you ever loved me like you say you do, you'll back off." The color drained from Lacey's face. She glanced around the room, clearly aware that the tide had shifted. "I was only trying to protect you," she said weakly. "No," Emily said. "You were trying to own me. And you don't get to do that." The silence in the room was heavy as Emily handed my papers back to me. Then she turned and walked toward the door. I followed, my legs feeling strangely light. Outside, the cold night air rushed over us. Emily didn't stop walking until we reached the parking lot. "I'm not ready to forget everything that's happened," she said quietly. "But I think I'm ready to try again." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. We stood there for a moment, the streetlight casting long shadows around us. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't holding my breath. Whatever came next, we would face it without Lacey's voice between us. And that, to me, was victory enough. If you were in Emily's shoes, would you have believed the truth? Or the lies? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear these powerful true stories of love, loss, and resilience.